Sure, go ahead. Do what comes naturally.
There's a beast lurking inside all of us, but the creature Sheriff Bigby harbors is difficult to keep silent. In The Wolf Among Us Episode 2, Smoke and Mirrors, you can determine just how sharp Bigby's claws can dig, whether you're dealing with a mouthy murder suspect, a cowering child, or a jealous husband who sniffs wrongdoing in the smoky air. In Fabletown, Bigby's former identity as the Big Bad Wolf is an open secret, but it's hardly the only one. The fables that live there need to keep their identities a secret from the masses. In Smoke and Mirrors, however, it becomes clear just how intricate Fabletown's web of lies and charades really is. Given the episode's title, it's no wonder you can't trust even what your eyes can see. If you played episode 1, you likely have a good idea of who Bigby is. At least, I know who my Bigby is. An impatient bastard who shows little restraint when cornered, but is fiercely protective of Fabletown's most vulnerable residents. As the episode leads you through its story points, you can express both sympathy and savagery. I admit I took some inner delight when pummeling a sickening suspect until he cried mercy. But later, when I got to my knees to speak to a diminutive witness, my heart filled with compassion. It was when jealousy intruded on my investigation that I realized how attached to Bigby I'd become. I was angry at the assumptions my accuser was making, and so I let out my inner wolf. And damn, did it feel good.
Let me get a swig of that. Oh, God. I'm cutting your throat next.
I'm sorry that I can't be more specific. Explaining the details would dull the story's bite. Besides, as you navigate your way through Smoke and Mirror's multiple crime scenes, events may play out differently. I appreciated how the game acknowledged my previous choices in its details, however. A smashed wall and a missing limb were sober visual reminders of past misdeeds that made me more mindful of the barbarian I could be. The atmosphere continues to be the series' greatest triumph. The heaving soundtrack, the spot-on voice acting, and the violet skies make it easy to take potty-mouthed toads and snarling trolls absolutely seriously. Nonetheless, Smoke and Mirrors occasionally feels like it's spinning its wheels. There are a few of the quick-time button events that give the first episode such tension, and their narrative stakes aren't as high. As a result, the game simmers but never quite boils over. Dealing with Smoke and Mirrors' relatively harmless lowlifes doesn't have the same appeal as bashing in the woodsman's head, even when they deserve a smack in the mouth now and again. Much of the time, you're left investigating crime scenes and interrogating fables, which can lead to some minor but noticeable idiosyncrasies. Bigby's tone of voice might change from one line to the next as branches separate and then converge. And at one point, a character dropped a plot point out of the blue that made me think the line wasn't intended for my particular branch of questioning. Ultimately, Smoke and Mirrors feels like a necessary bridge spanning The Wolf Among Us' impactful first episode and the events portrayed in the episode 3 preview that concludes this one. It smolders more than it burns, though in some sense, that's an appropriate trajectory for Bigby's ongoing investigation. There's a moment where Bigby lights a cigar and contemplates his next step. That's exactly where The Wolf Among Us stands now, percolating and pondering before the next punch to the guts.
She's my wife, Bigby!